Welcome back. I'm so excited
Oh,
to be back here with you. We just saw each other, but we have not been recording a lot lately. And my like Lisa warning light starts beeping,
I know.
starts
I
blinking.
I feel like I'm excited because we got some extra time that we didn't expect to get. So that felt like a
Yeah.
real gift. But yeah, I was thinking about that too this week. I was like, we have not recorded a pod in a while, and I don't like it.
Yeah, definitely not. It's an interesting thing. Like people will ask, like, how you and Lisa seem to be doing so much. How do you guys have time for it? I'm like, oh, it's the easiest thing to make time for because I don't have to leave my house. And also it's like the most, in a week where we're both parents, spouses, we both have a lot going on, like a lot of extra stuff going on.
Yeah.
You have so much stuff winding up, winding down with production, with graduation, with college. I have a lot going on with my kids also, and freaking remodel where there's like literally banging and pounding. And if you see me on YouTube, I'm always in a different room, wherever there's the least amount
Sometimes
of.
you're blurred, sometimes
Anyway,
you're not.
with all that going on, like what I want to say is when we get to record it, we get to be the most us. We get to be the most me and you and us. Like it's like that good through line. It's a good spine of what I do. It's nice.
And quite frankly, because I can segue into anything. It feels like self-care, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Segue is one of
Um,
your superpowers.
It really segueing is one of my superpowers. I'm not gonna lie. I was told that a long time ago when I was at Weight Watchers that I can weave into anything, and I own that fully.
I get told that reframing is mine. That's probably why we
Oh
work well together.
yeah,
You segue and
yes.
I'll reframe. Or I'll
There you
reframe and you
go.
segue. Anyway,
I
let's
love
go.
it.
Let's go.
So yes, I think as you just said, it's very important and interesting how this is our topic today. We laid these topics out probably end of the year last year. We sort of like said, oh, here's all the topics we want to talk about. And so the fact that it is hitting today is, as always, just divine right timing.
Because we're witches.
Because we are witches. I own that. And part of what is really important to us about this pod is that we are transparent. What you see is what you get. What you hear is what you get. And this is a topic because we're both, as you just said, we're going through fun things, we're going through not such fun things. Um, and so trying to weave in self-care is something we're constantly trying, that we're always working at. We have not mastered this. I don't think.
Mm.
I'm speaking for myself.
Right. I think that there's so many stages of it, and there's graduating levels, right? And we're
Mm.
like we're maybe in high school in self-care. We're not in college or master's.
Yeah.
But no, but like truly, and you probably, I don't know. I think I will always we will always kind of admire each other and how we're handling things, and we're always
Yeah.
there to remind each other like, oh, that shit's temporary and it doesn't feel like it. And we know that. We know that from our training, and we know that from our experience. But it is amazing thing to talk about self-care and know that I like for me and you, I'm just speaking for myself right now, like to know that I'm really excellent at helping people see that and teach my boys about that, right? And try to disrupt generational messaging around, putting others first, because that's like a zero-sum game, which we'll get into. But um it's one thing to like know it and to teach it, and another thing to be like, oh, I'm constantly got to check in with myself, because it's important to me. It's something I work on with other people because it has been my struggle. And
Yeah.
so when there's a bunch of things going on, it's the thing I have to really pay attention to and protect. And because I can operate really impressively and sacrifice self-care, I don't want to, but I
Right.
can. But I also know that like people are going to get the best version of me at everything if I continue to just make sure that that's important. I'm not always going to be excellent at it, but if it's non-existent, then then things are going to start to feel like they're going to fall apart. Even if they don't, internally it will.
100%. Would Can you think back to when you weren't good at prioritizing self-care? And I mean, I guess it's apples and oranges because you weren't, even if there was a time where you weren't good at it, you weren't going through everything you're going through now. And
True.
so you can't really say, oh, these things fell apart, because it's different than having a remodel and everything you deal with
Griffin's
three
health.
boys, Griffin's
Yes.
health,
Yeah.
Peter's decisions, Miles's
Yes.
decisions, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, let me get really good at self-care and then have three kids really close together.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I've said this before in several different episodes where it landed, on that topic. My my assumption in life as I was like trying to grow into being the person I thought I wanted to be was you got to get really good at being selfless at like, taking
Mm,
care of other people and that's admirable, right? That comes from Catholic grandparents. It comes from just messaging, like that whole Mother Teresa thing, right?
right.
Not that I was trying to be Mother Teresa. I like my fun. It's just that like there's a sense of like, serving others, especially to whom much is given, much is expected. All of that translated to me as you don't put yourself first. That's selfish.
Yeah.
And I think I also had opportunities because I was young. And as we know, as parents of them, teens and 20s, like that is a very myopic time. It should be. And
Yeah.
I definitely did get to have that. So when you ask me that, that's really interesting because like when was I bad? I don't know if I was ever terrible at it. I think I was good at it. I just got better about feeling less guilty about it.
Ding, ding, ding. Snaps. Agreed, 100%. I would say the same thing. I can't think of a time where I put myself last. I can think of a time where, the one that always comes, and I think I've talked about this before, the one that always comes to mind is always around exercise, because that is my self-care. I don't journal, I'm not a meditator. So the way I ground myself every day is by the first thing I do is getting up and working out. And um, Darren is not like that. And so we used to laugh all the time. Like even when Liam was a baby, I would get up early enough that I was up before he was up so that I could just get that in. It was just, and at the time I didn't understand that it was my self-care. It was important to me to exercise. And Darren would be like, I don't understand why you don't sleep in. I don't know. And I was like, it's not about choosing not to sleep in or to work out. This is what I want. And if it means that feels selfish, that I'm not laying in bed and snuggling, sorry, you know. Um, and so that's I think I remember being sort of, not that Darren meant to make me feel guilty, but like feeling like, am I being so selfish that I don't just lay around in bed and hang out? But I legitimately like get antsy when if I'm laying in bed and I don't want to. Now the
Yeah.
reverse of that is I think where I become better is acknowledging days where I do want to just stay in bed.
Yeah.
Last week, again, you're hearing this later in the month, but last week was Charlotte and Violet, and it was exhausting. And so I did not get up several days, or I got up and just did a little bit of movement, or something that normally takes me an hour to do took me 3 hours to do, because I was sort of piecemealing it together.
And you definitely at least had one day where you were like, right? So like there's
oh,
those signs right away that were like, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good example too, right? Opening day, I was a mess. I was both feeling like I was going to throw up and or bawl at any given moment. And for me, it was about talking about it, telling people like this is how I'm feeling, and being able to say it was self-care. I can imagine there are people out there who think, "Oh, if you're telling everybody that you're feeling this way, that feels like you're centering yourself, or you're looking for pity." That's what wasn't what I was looking for. I just needed to tell somebody I feel
Yeah.
like I'm going to throw.
I think we just said this before we hit record too. Like for me, I think that's like the least I can do is be
Mm-hmm.
honest about it and tell people how I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? Because you just reminded me when you said exercise is when I think of the times where I have fallen in what I know is my bare minimum for self-care and this term out there, self-care is like people start to roll their eyes like wellness, right?
Yeah.
And what we are talking about is like mastering the art of truly knowing how to put yourself first, how to put that oxygen mask on yourself first, like how to know like that of all your great intentions for others and for yourself are going to go so much better if you learn how to like just just check in with yourself first. Literally don't skip your breakfast, don't skip your shower, don't skip your needs, your at anything to tend to others, and think that that is a long-term plan. It's a good short-term plan. But it's not really either. But it can be if it has to be, but
Right.
truly that can't be the norm. And the places where I've justifiably, and no one would ever argue with me, like falling down on that is when, we're in a mode where there's a lot of seizures and I can't leave Griffin's side.
Right.
And I think I've also like shared that there's this, I didn't know if we were going to get into it at the beginning or not, but why not, right? Is the idea that when you're caring for somebody else who needs care, whether it's, a spouse, an elderly parent, or in my case, a child with medical needs that, are sometimes really intense and sometimes he's okay. But is that like their illness isn't yours?
Yeah.
Like his ability isn't mine, but it's so hard to separate that because it does feel like it becomes yours. So like that, that awareness that I had to come to, that like, oh, I'm not getting out for these beautiful sunset walks because he can't. Like that
Mm,
doesn't serve anyone. And I don't think I was conscious of that.
right.
Right. I'm not going to that dance class because he can't do that. Well, you know what? I need to do that. That's like I need to, for not just him, for his siblings and my marriage, and for anyone. Like I need to like feed Carrie the way she needs to be fed so that like I can continue to show up in the ways I want to show up for people. So yeah, like when things are hitting a lot at once and I just can't keep up with it, like the past couple of weeks, there's a lot going on with Griffin's seizures and his health. There's a lot going on with this house and with all three kids actually, and with, family members at large. I have to at least say to a few people in my life, like, this is hard right now. Like, this is really hard right now. I'm in a funk. I
Mm,
sent a group text out saying, hey, I've been in a preoccupied funk. Here's why, here's what's going on. But this little light happened today and this is awesome. I want to share that with you too. Like, I don't want to just share the good stuff. I don't want to just share the bad stuff. I don't have a lot of time to communicate. So like, let me just let it be known. And I don't need anything besides that. I like to update you and I like to just have people witness it. And if I need something, I will ask. And that's self-care for me right now.
totally. And I think there's, and I want to say this delicately because I don't want to say it as though I'm judging anything, because we all have our own path. I want to say this from a place of, if you know you are like this, perhaps the awareness is new. I think
Mm,
there's a difference between not being able to take care of yourself because you have to take care of a sick person or whatever it might be, and being a martyr about it.
mm,
And so I'll say this just because to me this is a very obvious example of, I learned, I think most moms learn really early on, maybe even before they have their kid. You have somebody say to you, when your kid naps, nap. It doesn't matter if dishes are in the sink. It doesn't matter if the laundry hasn't been done. That is the moment you need to sleep, because you are going to be up when your kid is up.
mhm,
And I am certain there are probably women out there who don't listen to that advice. That was not me. The minute Liam fell asleep, I fell asleep. The minute Charlotte fell asleep, I fell asleep. I have good time management skills, as we've talked about, so I still was able to sort of get that stuff done. But, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm just saying, like, I wholeheartedly took that. And the idea of like, oh, I've got to keep the house clean. Oh, I've got to do this. So the only time I have is to do it when my kids are asleep.
and according to
That's
whom is how I want to leave
a
it. According to
100%.
whom?
Yeah,
Who-
says
Right.
who for
Says
sure. But
who,
that's
but
to
yeah.
me a classic,
Yeah.
very general, very obvious way of martyrdom. And it
Right.
serves no one.
Right. And and we've seen, I mean, I myself have like, I've definitely could pick times in my life that, I could justify them, but where, I was like, I have to do this. And then luckily I had coaches that were like, do you? So there's a little control and perfectionism in there, which we've all talked about where that comes from. There's the stress and the other stuff, but in the high standards. But truly, like if you're in a good place with like, or just an aware place, and you have people in your life that you're open to feedback from, then you can kind of, like you can kind of relax and not think this isn't something you have to dissect and think about if you're listening to this. Like you can kind of relax into, okay, what's like, how do I want to feel day to day or at this event, or like, whatever it is, like Charlotte's, like an example I want to get into, which is a really interesting one because it's not super obvious, is scheduling your hip surgery, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not martyring, but you also
No.
really want to be present for Charlotte's play, for these
Yeah.
graduates. Like there's these things, it's like there's no good time to take yourself out of commission, and
No.
yet you are prioritizing it. There's a lot going into you prioritizing it, and you're not trying to suffer because you're fucking done suffering. So like, but like I think it's a great example for us to discuss, because that there's like, I I am not somebody who's trying to feel everything my kids feel. That's their experience. I do feel what they feel because I am empathic. You are too. Like I do feel what they feel. And it's up to me to kind of filter that and let it go, and not make them feel responsible for how I'm also sad for them when they're sad for themselves, because that's their thing, right? Like I
Yeah.
really hold them capable of having their own experiences and wanting them to come to me, when I can help. And I don't always get that right. I don't always get that right because I'm an emotional being, but that's my goal. And there are things like I can't help but help with because he
Hmm.
absolutely needs it. And it's not like, like it's not like either of us want that, he or I, but luckily we enjoy each other and there's a lot of love and laughter in there too. So I get it. Like when you're trying to like figure out when to schedule it, like there's no good time for this stuff. So then how do you take care of yourself and also prioritize those things?
Well, I'm going to say because of the dearth of medical abilities or care out there, it happened for me
Mm.
that, my hip surgery is 2 days after Charlotte's birthday. So it's right smack in between like being done with a big bunch of stuff and before graduation. And because it's a hip surgery, I getting it replaced, I'm supposed to be up and around. This is not a surgery where I'm going to have to be laying in bed for 6 weeks. The PT is walking. Um, but when I originally thought I would have control over when, funny me, thinking I could say when I wanted to have the hip surgery, like I wanted to have it today. I mean, literally the day we're recording, like this in my mind was when I was having it. And then I realized I wanted to go see Charlotte compete this coming weekend. It's okay. Now I got to push it back another week, and then I got to push it. Oh, and then this is coming up. Oh, and then her birthday. Oh, and then this. And so I was, and then like I said, it was completely out of my control. And Divine Right Timing had it that it's going to be May 15th, and that's a perfect time for me to have it where nothing's really going on for just like a hot second. And if I have to walk with a cane, which I will hate, I will do it to get to the rest of her stuff.
Oh,
And
Madonna rocked
Lance.
it. You can rock it.
I know. I'm like, should I be looking online for a really cool cane?
Something with like a
Um,
cobra head or
yeah,
something.
yeah, totally. I would definitely do like a skull, but yes. And maybe I'll know more next week when I go to the doctor. But it, quite frankly, I think with as far as my hip was concerned, um, I took too long to figure out what was wrong with it. And it wasn't out of fear. It was out of like, I thought I knew what was right. And so it took me too long to go to the doctor. I think now I can look back retroactively and say, this has been going on. By the time I get the surgery, it's probably been going on 18 months.
Mm.
Um, and but it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And to Darren's dismay, although he's very sweet and says it isn't, talking about it. He's like, I can't wait till you get that hip replaced. So you stop talking about how much pain you're in. But
Mm.
you can't help it when you stand up and you oof every time you stand up. Um, and
I don't know, actually, I think you talk about it that much, and we talk a lot. I think you were talking about it a lot when it came on fast, because it was like,
yeah,
what the hell is this? And you were trying everything.
yeah, it did come on fast, and it's not going away. So it's just, and some days are horrible and some days are fine. But I do. I do I not complain. I share what I'm feeling a lot, because it's every day is a little bit different. And some days my knee hurts, and sometimes my hip hurts, and some days my groin hurts. And I'm just like, this is so weird. Um, and like I said, he actually is very kind about it. He's not making fun of me, but I am also looking forward to just being done with this
Mm.
for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So this, okay. So we have some notes. I might just scrap them all because this is just fascinating to me. Just
Yeah.
talking about us and our journey, right?
Yeah.
And also, I was listening to another podcast this week. I'm pretty sure it was "We Can Do Hard Things," and I don't mean to not know for sure. I just listen to a lot of things when I'm driving around all these lacrosse games, but like just the importance of fun and how hard that is for women, right? And I'm really aware of that I can't get to joy and fun without identifying my needs, and then also
Mm,
like, delegating some things, and then just really, speaking to what it is I'm experiencing so that I can then get, then kind of hone in on what it is that I need. So there's like the routine of self-care, and we call this selfing because on one of those podcasts I heard that term, right? Like we
yeah.
should call it, anything but like selfing is like the necessary thing we do to show up in the world the best way we know how, right? So like for me, I look at it in two categories. There's the non-negotiable stuff we do every day that includes the way we talk to ourselves, the way we
Hmm.
treat ourselves, right? But also like what are basic things. And then also there's the like, what do you want to prioritize? What do you want more of? Right. So I love this idea if we could just ask each other, like, how do you love yourself every day? And how, like, what are the non-negotiables, which you've kind of touched on already? And like, what are you wanting more of in your selfing?
Well, and I want to just clarify too, like we kind of hard eye rolled self-care, the word, because it is, like you said, it's overused, right? As is
Oh yeah,
wellness,
I
and
love the
right.
word. I just don't
A
like the
hundred
way.
percent. But I think, and maybe our listeners are already with us on this, but I remember like having, especially when I was back coaching coaches years ago, and we would talk about self-care, and it was like, it's self-care is not manicures and pedicures. That's the fun little like experiences you have, but you spoke to it earlier. So I just wanted to, before we talk
Yeah.
about this, reiterate self-care is about the necessities. It's about having breakfast. It's about taking a shower. It might not be about exercise for you. It is for me, and I know it is for you, but that's not everybody's bag. Meditation is not my bag, but it is for a lot of people. So it's those things that make you feel human on any given day. And there are days where you don't have time for it, and that you shouldn't feel guilty about that either, you know.
Mhm.
So what was your question to me?
Is, like how do you love yourself?
Mm.
And how do you love yourself every day? Like how do you go about loving yourself? And then also, what are your non-negotiables and what do you want more of? So those are three questions.
Gotcha. Okay. Hope you can remember them for yourself. So how do I love myself every day? I don't know that I actively think about it. I think it is for me. I think there's and this, there's a sequence you can do if you struggle with loving yourself, of standing in the mirror and saying to yourself repeatedly, I love you, looking in the mirror and saying it until you feel it. I have
Mhm.
never done that sequence. I didn't do it when I was training. I don't do it with my clients. I don't like it. And it's not because I don't feel that way about myself. It might be because I do feel that way and I don't feel the necessity to look in the mirror, and it feels ridiculous to me.
Mhm.
Um, I know people that it has been miraculous for. And I
Definitely.
love those stories. I love when people are like, that was the turning point for me.
Mhm.
I think I have a good sense of self. I can't remember not having a good sense of self. I think I did think of it as selfishness at some point, the way I thought of myself. Like, um, but because of that, I don't need to actively
Mhm.
declare that I love myself. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
But
Um,
I mean, maybe it's not about how do you tell yourself, but just how do you like how do you know you love you? Like what is it you do?
no,
Is
I
it
mean, because I do have the non-negotiables, right? So I do. when 99.9% of any given year, I get up and work out every day. And how I know I love myself is when I get up and I can't. Now, every day I wake up and go, I'm going to sleep a little bit longer. And then I go, no, I'm not. I'm getting up, and I never regret that. But there are days, this last Sunday being one of them, where I was like, I'm not working out. I pre-knew I wasn't. And part of it is I was having a ton of people spend the night. But I was just like, nah, that I made the mistake after Cabaret of thinking, when Charlotte was in Cabaret last year, of thinking everything's just going to be normal. And it wasn't. I was exhausted. I do, and this is not martyrdom, it just is. I do take on Charlotte's energy, and I'm so glad to, because she doesn't feel the nerves. I feel them for her, or I feel them for myself. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know why, but it's bad. And I knew that from Cabaret. And so I pre-planned during Violet that there were going to be days where I just didn't get up and work out. I knew I'd be tired. I knew my hip would hurt more because of moving around and all the things. So those are the ways I think I show my self-love, because I give myself grace with Zippo guilt. So that's
Nice.
probably the real answer,
That's great.
right?
I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah,
answer.
I
That's
think that's the real
fantastic.
answer. Thank you for asking more questions.
And then what do you want
You're a
more
good
of
coach.
for you? Yeah. What do you want more of for you in the selfing, in the journey of selfing? Because it is a journey that you never really, with no total destination, and because it's the journey, right? But like,
Yeah.
what could grow in terms of your selfing?
You know what? I honestly don't know the answer to that. And the reason I think I don't know the answer to that is because everything's about to change in about 4 months. Darren and I will truly be empty nesters. And we've worked our way into it because both of the kids have been in and out of the house quite a bit. Charlotte's very busy. Liam's lived out of the house for several years, but I don't know what more I want yet. I'm very happy with how I take care of myself now. I think I want to remind myself that I have to give myself grace after the surgery, because I know I'm not gonna get to move the way I like to move. So I have to be okay with walking as being my main form of movement. But in the future, I think I won't know that until September, really, when she's gone and we're home alone. Um, and yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
And that's why, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So to you now, my friend.
I'm hoping that this other point comes back to me. You said something and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna remember to say that. No idea what it was, but hopefully it comes back to me. But to answer those questions, okay. How do I love myself every day? The first answer is really easy to when you have a snuggly pet,
Oh my God. Yeah,
because it's
Mabel.
such a reflection of love, like just an exchange of love. And so
Yeah.
it is just an immediate oxytocin producing thing that is combined with also giving myself grace. However, it does eat into my motivation to get out of bed and exercise. So it is a interesting thing that I'm working through. Like, oh, in the 3 years I've had her, I've like given into, "Oh, I'm just gonna start working in bed and snuggle her and I'll get to that later." And I do, but like I'm much happier when I like have my routine where it's all about me. So it is a little bit interesting to notice where, I'm not just serving her when I do that, but
Right.
it's so that is part of it. There's something really lovely about the love I get from both dogs, and and I feel it reflected from the love I give them, and it comes back. So that's just pure, unselfish, lovely, fluffy love. And then also I think like boundaries, I've
Mm.
really grown and learned how to be really clear with like, yeah, actually, no, I don't want to do that, or I need this time, I need this from you, or I need this to be like really being unapologetic in my boundaries has really been one of the greatest ways I've shown love to myself, in knowing I deserve it. Like in human design, you're out of alignment when you feel bitter. And
You do. Me, I'm
me,
frustrated.
me,
Yes. Yeah.
right. In my human design as a projector, bitterness. And so it's if I feel like I'm even going in that direction, I can course correct. So
Hmm.
yeah. So, and you know, like I have some bitterness about some things that are out of my control right now, like this freaking remodel.
I have bitterness for you.
But,
You know what's funny is I get really frustrated with that. That's my human design. So
right? Yeah,
am
you
I
get
being
frustrated,
out of
like,
alignment for you? It's like I'm so frustrated for
yeah,
you.
this is our middle-aged version of getting periods at the same time or something. Let's see. Okay, so what are my non-negotiables? I mean, my non-negotiables are exercise. It is my mental health,
Yeah,
right? Oh, now I know
100%.
what I was going to say, right? Is self-care, like yes, it's become an overused term, and then people start to, hate on it. But honestly, it is the growing awareness of your need to monitor your own and be aware of your mental health, right? Like self-care is all about mental health. And we're going to
Yep.
talk about that next week because next week starts mental health awareness month. But that's what I was going to say. So my non-negotiables are checking in with myself, and I do have a routine of writing just to do that brain dumping thing, that the
Mm.
pages. And so I do a little bit of writing and meditation, usually after I've exercised, if I exercise in the morning, because it's so much easier for my brain to settle and release and get into a grounded place if I've moved my body first. So I might do a version of that if I'm going to exercise later. But the other thing that's become non-negotiable is at least one song a day I will sing at the top of my lungs. I'll just crank, and
I love
whether
that.
it's in the car, and if I can, I try to move my hips, like dance in some way. So if there's singing and dancing, even if it's less than 15 minutes in a day, I'm in like a more aligned place with myself. And like, what do I want more of? I want more of that. Like, my friend Beth and I, we were singing karaoke with Griffin for his birthday with a small group of people, and it was unbelievably joyful just to be
Mm.
at the top of our lungs. And you know this better than most people, because this is what you do in the midst of even hard days for yourself, is you just blast music and you dance around your house. So
Yeah.
and sing. It's cathartic. It's
Yeah.
really cathartic. And I don't go into a ton of detail. Like we have some scary stuff going on with Griffin and what's progressing for him, and this rare genetic stuff he deals with that causes his seizures. And like, if I were to notice, I'm taking a cue from him. You were there. You heard it. Like, he puts on headphones and sings at the top of his lungs
Yeah.
almost every day. And he dances when he can and when he's able to. And it is really just some of the best medicine. So I want more of that, like more of that, not just for medicine, just because like it is. I've been to a couple of comedy shows recently, and I've been to some music, and I realize more of that will, like, it is all a bunch of things I need in one, and things I want more of, and it's ways I love myself. It's like, I know that the ways to like take care of myself is to make sure I'm laughing, singing, and dancing. And so and better off if I'm doing those with people I love who also love to do those things. So I think that all kind of goes into one, and that's the best way to take care of my mental health. But I can't take care of my mental health without exercise. So that is a non-negotiable. So yeah.
I think, you know, as you're talking, and I was sort of looking at our notes as well. I mean, and maybe this is a great way to sort of wrap this up. This week we had this great experience with Violet last week, and you and I know from going to events that we have event hangovers. Charlotte put words to, so we get up Monday, like I was telling you this before we got on. Sunday, Liam and Irina are here. Charlotte has some friends spending the night. We all sort of wake up very leisurely. Darren and I take Liam and Irina to one of our favorite breakfast places. Charlotte and her besties, Elena and Brianna, go to their favorite breakfast place. And I was sitting at breakfast with Liam and Irina, and I just said, we had just had a unexpected ginormous party the night before, which didn't throw me one iota because I was just loving having all these kids in the house. And I was just really content. I was really just like in such a happy space, and just content. Is the perfect word for it. And then Monday we wake up and we go to Charlotte's college, which we're so excited about her going to Loyola Marymount. And then we come home and we get all our tax bills, and that's a little overwhelming. And then so that threw me Monday, and then Tuesday I was still feeling really low and heavy, like tight in my chest. And um, I did do the thing of just trying to really be in this place of gratitude of like, these are the things I do have. Yes, I'm struggling, right? This is feeling heavy right now, but these are the things I do have. And it wasn't really working. I'm not going to lie. And so
Right.
it goes back to the toxic positivity, right? So here we are, here you and I are saying all the things that are positive, the boundaries and the good.
Mhm.
And what I knew on Monday and Tuesday was I had to feel what I was feeling, and they
Right.
weren't great feelings. I went to the pool on Wednesday and like little tears running down my face as I'm at, which I know that's small violin for me being at the pool, but it's still, I was still having the emotions. I guess that was Tuesday, sorry. And then yesterday I woke up and it was all gone. I
Mm.
felt great. Oh, I
Yeah.
started to say Charlotte also speaks to the we have event hangover. There is a thing like post-show depression, which I think I was feeling too. 5 days of watching Charlotte fucking nail it in Violet,
Just
and then it's
amazing.
over. Oh,
Amazing.
so good. And then it's over, and there is, there's a little. It's been a lot of adrenaline thrown going through your body, and
It
so
also,
that
it wasn't just adrenaline in a show. It was a very personal,
powerful.
deep, like deeply emotional storyline. And like Darren said, it is like it is just so, even though it's acting, it's so hard to watch my daughter like struggle to love herself in a character, right?
Yeah,
Like there was
yeah.
just like that was, oh, it was so personal. I think it just exploded everyone's heart.
Oh, 100%. I was
I
just
cried
reading.
like 3 times, both times I watched it, and I only watched the first half the second time.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
reading the little postcards that people sent back to her, and a lot of them said like this broke me wide open. And these are teenagers saying this. So all of that Monday and Tuesday, and I couldn't positively get myself out of it. I kept trying,
Mhm.
but then Wednesday it was gone. And so
Yeah.
when you're in the midst of things that are really hard, letting that happen to you,
Mhm.
sometimes it feels like you can't get out of it. But we said it before, you said it a year ago, everything is temporary. And so
Right.
being able to let it flow and know that when you can feel good, whether it's singing at the top of your lungs, watching Griffin sing at the top of his lungs, sharing the good moments along with the things that are rough, it does build resilience for those bad days because the bad days are still going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, this is such a good point because um I canceled a bunch of things Friday, the day after we had that MRI, because I was literally like, I call it swap meet face, like I just was glazed over. And there was so much going on in my house. There was like this father and son putting tile in, and these subcontractors, and then these other, like it was like the UN. It was so funny. I was cracking up. This guy was teaching me Armenian, and then these really nice guys who both happen to be from Russia were putting in the built-in the dining room for a contractor. This all sounds so silly. Like it just hardly anything's been happening with our house. And then all of a sudden in one day, and then
Mm,
our contractor was in my kitchen playing with the dogs. And like, so there was like sweet things happening. There was nice people working on, whatever. And I had this bad news, and I had nowhere in the house I could work to escape it. And I just kind of let myself be glazed over. I let myself wander, took the dogs for a walk, but like not on a normal walk. Like I just sort of let myself float, and it was kind of just like this. And then I didn't get much done. And I think the win was I didn't let myself go into self-criticism over that. I could have.
mm.
I could have, and that I do. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. This has been rough. I haven't gotten to this thing yet." And like that's the hardest thing for me not to do, go into self-criticism and feel like, oh, I wasted some time. But it's never a waste of time to just let your emotions pool, even if they're uncomfortable, even if it's like, just, you got to feel it. You got to feel it.
Yeah.
I have had, I mean, starting with Violet, but really ever since then, like I've had tears leaking out of me every day, and sometimes, gushing out. I mean, sometimes but it does allow me to like really get excited about this weather we're having right now, or about, like you said, singing in the car. And um it allows me to just feel more like me, because
Yeah.
I let it come. And that is self-care. You're right. That is just as much self-care as doing some yoga.
100%. And
In fact,
it's
I did yoga the other day, and I ended up laying on my net mat.
that's yoga. That's
Yes.
a Shavasana or whatever it
Yes.
is.
It's like, this is going to be a full-on Shavasana. That's okay.
I love it. So I guess the final sort of thought is whatever makes you feel good is self-care.
Yeah.
It is transformative. It is not selfish. And I guarantee you, Kari and I can say this without a shadow of a doubt, that when you take care of yourself first, everybody else wins.
It's true.
When you martyr yourself, when you put yourself last, everybody else suffers. It
And
might not be super obvious, but it's true.
and question it, if you some voice in your head or some voice, some family voice that you've heard a bunch of times, or someone actually says
Yeah.
everything is selfish, question it, because
Mhm.
you're on to, if someone's seeing you as being selfish, you might be doing something really right for yourself, and maybe that's a signal for them, not you.
I think that that'd be an opportune time for them to share this episode of the pod.
Exactly. And also, not even whatever makes you feel good, but whatever makes you feel like you.
Yeah. In that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you picked a great song for this.
Yeah.
You're on a roll lately of picking all the songs, and I love it. We are picking Greatest Love of All by the one and only Whitney Houston. So I'm going to
Mhm.
read the lyrics for this one.
I
I
have
mean,
very visceral memories of her songs and videos because I worked
oh,
in a
me too.
restaurant in the 80s, and they would play her videos and I would just hear them in my head. So
Yeah.
like I dance with somebody and this song and the movie,
Yes.
the bodyguard.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, people need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who would fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. And so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadows. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me.
Mm,
Ah, Whitney.
that's so sweet. Mm,
I wish she had listened to her own lyrics.
I know. I
I
know.
know.
Gosh. Well, that's it on this episode. I love how we kind of went way off script. Not that it was much of a script, but I do. I think it's such a great topic for us right now. And we're both in a beautifully raw place with it, like good
Yeah.
and hard. So it's good conversation. So I just want to encourage you, if you're listening, to consider, what it is for you, and to remind you, if you didn't know yet, that there is a way to plan some self-care. Not that it takes the place of your daily self-care and what that means for you, but Mother's Day is coming up, or maybe you have a birthday coming up, or maybe you have a summer break coming up.
Or maybe you just want it.
Maybe you just want it, but there's a way you can plan little getaways. In fact, we have one just for you if you want to think of one in the fall, and it is our Best Chapter Yet retreat, your unique and amazing experience with us and 28 other women in because there'll be 30 of us. And oh no, well, there
There'll
could
be
be up to
30.
30 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
In Chicago for our retreat. And so if you're interested, check the show notes, check our posts, check our website at thethingsweknowpodcast.com. We have information there to learn about the retreat and to register, and people are starting to fill up. So don't wait on that. It is a beautiful act of self-care to plan something like that.
Amen. Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening to The Things We Know.
Bye.